This is Background Nippon. There is nothing here that needs your attention. What follows is Japanese history, told slowly for the end of the day. The lanterns are lit. Before the first light reaches the streets of Kyoto, the city lies beneath a thin layer of frost. Stone lanterns in temple gardens glint pale grey. The wooden eaves of old merchant houses are etched with ice that catches almost no light at all. A few crows sit on the tiled roofs. The city is not yet awake. For more than 1,000 years, this has been a place where time moves differently than elsewhere, where the old buildings still stand, where the streets still follow patterns laid down in the 8th century. Winter in Kyoto is when this quietness becomes complete. The snow, when it comes, falls on a city that has already learned how to be still. In August 1945, while other Japanese cities burned, Kyoto remained standing. American B-29 bombers flew past. They had been instructed to leave it untouched. This was not an accident of war. It was a deliberate choice made by a single man in Washington, Henry Stimson, the Secretary of War. Stimson had visited Kyoto once in 1926, during his honeymoon with his wife Christine. He had walked through the temples. He had seen the rock gardens. He understood even then that Kyoto was not merely a military target. It was a cultural inheritance that could not be replaced. When the atomic age began, Stimson thought of those temples. He argued and prevailed that Kyoto must survive. The decision was not made for sentiment. It was made because some things once destroyed remain destroyed forever. Stimson was a man of discipline, a lawyer trained in the exact measurement of things. But his honeymoon belonged to him alone. He and Christine traveled to Kyoto in the spring. The gardens were in bloom. He walked the gravel paths at Ryoanji, the Zen rock garden that asks the mind to find meaning in emptiness. He stood before the gold-leafed walls of the Kinkakuji, the golden pavilion, reflected perfectly in the still water below. These were not sights a man forgets. 20 years later, when his work turned to destruction, Stimson carried these memories. He knew that if the city was burned, these places would be gone. And he understood that the war would end, and the ending would matter. What would remain would define the peace. The war ended. Kyoto stood. 2 million people survived in a city that might have been ash. The temples remained. The mahiya, the old townhouses with their narrow frontages and hidden gardens, still lined the streets. The weaving looms of Nishijin still carried their patterns. But surviving the war was not the same as surviving the future. In the years that followed, Japan faced a choice: rebuild by erasing the past or rebuild by protecting it. Other cities rushed toward modernity. Concrete rose. Neon bloomed. Kyoto, which had been spared from bombs, now faced a different kind of pressure, the pressure to become like everywhere else. This is where a city's true character reveals itself, not in what survives catastrophe, but in what it chooses to preserve when no one is forcing it to. In the years after the war, Kyoto's city planners and residents engaged in a quiet argument about their own future. Should the city modernize fully, as Tokyo was doing? Should it become a place of efficiency and progress, with wide avenues and tall buildings? Or should it remain what it had always been? A city shaped by an older vision of beauty and space. There was money in modernization. There were jobs, but there were also voices, conservationists, temple keepers, old families whose ancestors had lived on the same streets for centuries, who argued that once Kyoto became a modern city, it could never become old again. The choice that emerged was unusual. Kyoto would grow, yes, but it would grow carefully. The old would not be destroyed for progress. This decision, made not all at once but gradually through countless small choices, defined everything that followed. In 1467, the city of Kyoto was burned nearly to the ground. The war that caused this lasted 10 years and began over a question of succession: who would inherit a position of power that already held almost none. The armies fighting for that inheritance used Kyoto itself as their battlefield, and when they were done, most of the city had been destroyed. The imperial court fled north. The aristocracy scattered. The great estates that had defined Kyoto for 7 centuries were reduced to ash and overgrown lots. And yet the city came back, not because anyone commanded it to, but because the merchants and craftspeople who had survived remembered what had been there. They rebuilt from memory. The street patterns remained. The trades continued. The particular character of the place, the way it valued restraint, the way it knew what to keep, turned out to be more durable than the buildings themselves. In 1869, the emperor left Kyoto. He had been persuaded to relocate to Tokyo, where the new government was establishing itself and where the modern Japanese state would be built. For Kyoto, this was a moment of profound disorientation. For more than 1,000 years, the city had been defined by its relationship to imperial power. Now that power had moved. The city did not know at first what it was for. Merchants worried. Craftsmen who had served the court wondered about their livelihoods. The population fell. The silk industry contracted. Kyoto had always been a city that looked inward, that drew its dignity from something internal. Now it had to find out if that was enough. What Kyoto chose to do in response was not retreat but transformation. The city opened one of Japan's first public elementary schools, drawing on the local tradition of neighborhood learning groups. It invited textile engineers from France and established mechanized weaving alongside the older handloom workshops. It became the site of one of Japan's early universities, drawing scholars who would eventually form the Kyoto School of Philosophy. The city found a new identity, not by abandoning what it had been, but by putting its old skills in dialogue with the new century. The craftspeople who had made things for the court began making them for the world. The culture that had been hidden behind palace walls became something Japan could offer outward. Kyoto discovered that its character had not been borrowed from the emperor. It had always been its own. The machiya is a specific kind of building born from necessity and taxation. In Kyoto, merchants and craftspeople were taxed by the width of their street frontage, so the machiya was designed to be narrow, sometimes only 15 feet wide, but deep. A machiya might stretch 100 feet back from the street, containing rooms that open onto a hidden garden. The front of the building is all dark wood and small windows, protecting the interior life from the street. To walk past a machiya, you see almost nothing. To enter one is to discover an entire world arranged vertically and inward. There are interior courtyards where light falls. There are small gardens where water runs over stone. The air inside a machiya moves differently, cooler in summer, warmer in winter, because the deep structure absorbs and releases heat slowly. The building breathes. 40,000 machiya remain in Kyoto, though the number decreases each year. To preserve a machiya is to enter into an argument with time. The wood ages. The plaster cracks. The wiring inside these old buildings is dangerous by modern standards. The bathrooms are small, yet each year, preservation groups in Kyoto rescue makiya from demolition. They teach young craftspeople how to replaster walls, how to carefully disassemble beams and replace the ones that have rotted, how to understand what the original builders intended. This work is slower and more expensive than demolition and replacement. It requires knowledge that is not written down, that lives in the hands and eyes of artisans who learned from other artisans. The work is continuous, because the buildings are continuous. A machiya built in 1750 is still standing, still inhabited, still slowly being repaired by people who believe that keeping it standing is worth the cost. Inside a machiya in winter, the light dims early. The deep interiors are dim even at midday, so evening falls quickly. A single lamp illuminates a single room. The other rooms fade into shadow. This is not a design flaw. It is how the space is meant to be occupied. You live in the room where the light is. The rest of the house waits. You move through the dark corridors knowing their shape from memory and habit. The wooden beams above you are so old they have turned nearly black. The plaster walls have a texture like cloth. If you place your hand on the wood, you feel the slow cooling of the building at night, the way the structure releases the heat it held during the day. In these moments, living in a machiya in winter, you are living in a rhythm designed centuries ago and not yet changed. The difficult truth is this: keeping a machiya standing is not economically advantageous for the person who owns it. The rent from a machiya is less than the rent from a modern apartment building constructed on the same land. The maintenance costs are high. An owner who tears down a machiya and builds 5 modern units can generate more income. The person who maintains the machiya is choosing to earn less, to maintain buildings that require constant attention, to participate in a kind of work that provides no profit. Yet people make this choice. They do so because they believe that some things, beauty, continuity, the memory of how previous generations lived, have a value that does not appear in a financial calculation. They do so because they live in Kyoto and they believe that Kyoto should remain Kyoto. This belief is voluntary. It is not enforced, but it is powerful. In the Gion district, culture is practiced as a discipline. The women who train here, Maiko as apprentices, Geiko when they reach proficiency, spend years learning an art that is less about performance than about presence. They study dance, the tea ceremony, the shamisen, the protocols of the uchaya, the traditional tea house. They learn how to move through a room, how to listen, how to create the quality of atmosphere that a gathering requires. Winter in Gion has a particular stillness. The tourist crowds are thinner. The cobblestones are cold. The ochaya lanterns glow orange against an early dark. Occasionally a figure passes in formal kimono, moving without hurry down the narrow lane. What survives in Gion is not a costume. It is a transmission from one practitioner to the next of a way of inhabiting time. The philosopher's path runs for 2 kilometers along a canal in the eastern hills of Kyoto. It takes its name from Nishida Kitan, a philosopher who walked it daily in the early decades of the 20th century and who is sometimes called the founder of the Kyoto school. Nishida spent his life attempting to build a bridge between Western philosophy and the forms of thought that had developed in East Asia, particularly the Buddhist traditions that had been embedded in Kyoto for over 1,000 years. The path along which he walked is quiet in winter. The famous cherry trees that line it are bare, their branches dark against a white sky. The canal runs shallow and clear. The path asks nothing of the person walking it. It simply offers duration, a fixed route, a fixed distance, a known end. Whatever you bring to it is what it gives back. Ryoanji is a temple built around emptiness. The famous rock garden contains 15 stones arranged on white gravel, but the garden is designed so that from any single point where a person stands, only 14 stones are visible. One stone is always hidden. The garden teaches that completeness is not always possible, that what you can perceive is not the whole of what exists. In winter, when snow falls on Kyoto, the gravel of the garden becomes white. The stones, dark and ancient, rise against the white background. The snow erases some things while revealing others. The texture of the garden becomes more visible. The careful raking of the gravel, the precise placement of each stone, these intentions become clearer under snow. The garden is meant for quiet contemplation. In winter, when few visitors come, the silence deepens. The golden pavilion, Kinkaku-ji, sits on the edge of a small lake, 3 stories of gold leaf. In 1950, a young Buddhist monk burned it down. He believed the beautiful object was an attachment, a distraction from true enlightenment. He wanted to destroy beauty itself. The fire consumed the building completely, but the temple community chose to rebuild. They studied historical records, ancient paintings, architectural drawings. They reconstructed the pavilion as it had been, completed in 1955. On a winter day, when there is snow on the ground and the lake is cold, the gold leaf reflects in the icy water. The gold and its reflection become almost the same thing. This is not the same building the 14th century artisans constructed, but it is built with their intention. It stands as a conversation across time between the original builders, the monk who tried to destroy it, and the craftspeople who chose to restore it. Fushimi Inari is a shrine devoted to the kami of rice and commerce. Behind and above the main building, the mountainside is covered with thousands upon thousands of vermilion torii gates, wooden archways donated by merchants and businesses over the course of centuries. To walk through Fushimi Inari is to walk through a tunnel of gates. If you begin the hike toward the summit, you will walk for 2 or 3 hours. The gates continue without interruption. In winter, the path is quiet. The numbers of pilgrims drop. Snow may fall on the gates, covering them partially. The vermilion color becomes softer in winter light. A person walking alone might hear only their own footsteps and the occasional sound of wind through the metal rings that hang on some of the older gates. This is where you understand the scale of human devotion, not through crowds, but through the traces left by countless individuals accumulated over centuries. As evening falls in a Kyoto temple in winter, the light takes on a particular quality. The sky darkens from blue to purple to a grey that is almost black. The stone lanterns that line the pathways are lit, small flames creating pools of light on the ground. The buildings themselves become silhouettes. If there is snow, it catches the last light and glows faintly. The sound of the world becomes more distant. Visitors depart. The temple bells ring, and the sound echoes across the empty courtyards. This is the hour when a temple seems most itself, not as a place to visit, but as a place where people have returned every day for 700 years, where the work of spiritual practice continues regardless of whether anyone is watching. The winter evening draws this practice into clarity. In the Nishijin district of Kyoto, the sound of weaving looms can still be heard on winter mornings. Nishijin ori, the silk weaving of Nishijin, has been produced in this area since the 5th century. The craft is astonishingly complex. A single kimono might require months of work. The color patterns, the texture, the weight of the fabric, each must be precisely controlled. The weaver sits at a wooden loom, throwing the shuttle back and forth, the sound rhythmic and steady. In winter, the morning light comes through tall windows. The workshop is cold. The artisan's hands become stiff. The work requires warmth and flexibility, and the cold works against both. Yet the work continues. A master weaver might have learned the craft from a parent or grandparent. The patterns are kept in coded instructions, written on cards that hang above the loom. The loom itself might be centuries old, repaired and maintained by generations. The true cost of preserving a craft is the cost of teaching it to the next generation. A young person learning to be a weaver must spend years, often without pay, learning the basic motions. Their hands must develop a muscle memory that cannot be rushed. A master weaver, in teaching, works at half their own productive capacity. They are showing, correcting, explaining. The young apprentice makes mistakes. Threads break. Patterns go wrong. This is the price of continuity. And the price is high enough that fewer young people choose this path. In Nishijin, workshops have closed. Some master weavers have no successors. They carry knowledge that when they die, will die with them. The knowledge lives in the body, in the hands that understand how tight the tension should be, in the ear that hears the slight sound that indicates a problem with the thread. This knowledge cannot be fully captured. It must be lived. Inside a weaving workshop on a winter afternoon, a single weaver might work alone. The workshop is a wooden building, old and narrow. The space is exactly as it was designed, with the loom positioned to catch the light from the tall windows. The weaver sits at the loom, feet on the pedals, hands moving the shuttle. The repetitive motion is almost meditative. The sound of the loom, the clack of the shuttle, the movement of the threads is the primary sound in the building. Outside, the winter street is silent. The work is slow. A single section of elaborate pattern might take an hour. But the weaver does not rush. The work has its own pace. A machine can repeat, but it cannot think. A human weaver thinks with their hands. A single hand-woven piece of Nishijin silk might cost $2,000 or more. An industrial machine can produce the same visual pattern in far less time for a fraction of the cost. This is not a matter of opinion. It is simple mathematics. A young person choosing between becoming a weaver and earning a salary in another field is choosing between poverty and comfort. Some choose the craft anyway because the craft calls to them. But the numbers mean that fewer and fewer make this choice. The knowledge is being lost slowly, as a language is lost when young people stop speaking it at home. Kyoto's cultural organizations have established support funds for artisans, but the fundamental tension remains. The world has changed. To preserve the craft is to choose to exist outside the market logic that dominates elsewhere. In winter, the Kyoto kitchen becomes a practice in reduction. Keiseki, the formal meal tradition that grew alongside the tea ceremony, is in its deepest form about alignment with season. In winter, this means root vegetables, preserved foods, the clean, cold flavors of the season's fish. It means broths made from ingredients that have been cultivated through patience, kombu harvested in autumn, dried mushrooms from mountain forests, tofu that achieves its final texture only through freezing and thawing. Kaiseki is sometimes described as a cuisine, but it is more accurately understood as a philosophy of attention. The question it asks is not what the diner wants, but what the season is offering. The cook's role is to listen to that and arrange an answer. A complete kaiseki meal in winter can take 3 hours and involve more than a dozen courses. Each one is finished quickly. None of it is meant to be remembered. The meal exists entirely in the time it is eaten. In the 1960s and 1970s, Kyoto's city planners and residents held a long conversation, formal and informal, in city halls and in tea shops about what Kyoto should become. The city faced constant pressure to modernize. Developers wanted to build tall hotels, office buildings, shopping centers. There was profit in this development. There were jobs. But each project meant the destruction of old buildings, the erasing of the patterns that had made Kyoto distinctive. Some residents argued that modernization was inevitable, that to resist it was to condemn Kyoto to stagnation. Others argued that Kyoto's true value lay not in becoming like every other Japanese city, but in remaining itself. This debate never fully resolved. Instead, it produced a compromise. Kyoto would change and grow, but slowly, carefully, under strict regulations. Height restrictions were imposed. Signage was limited. Certain areas were designated as preservation zones where change was restricted. In 2004, Japan passed the Landscape Act, a national law giving local governments the power to regulate the visual environment. Kyoto used this power aggressively. The city implemented some of the strictest preservation ordinances in the nation. Buildings in designated areas cannot exceed certain heights. Roof lines must match the historical character of the district. Signs must be small and subdued. Advertising billboards are prohibited in most areas. These restrictions apply even to national chains and large corporations. A convenience store in Kyoto must look different from a convenience store in Tokyo. These restrictions make development more expensive and more difficult. But they have worked. Kyoto's skyline looks more like Kyoto's skyline of 60 years ago than Tokyo's skyline does. The choice was made decades ago to prioritize preservation over unlimited growth. The choice to preserve Kyoto has a cost that falls on the people who live there. Young people born in Kyoto often leave. They move to Tokyo or Osaka, where jobs are abundant and salaries are higher. The businesses that remain in Kyoto are often not the businesses that create high-paying work. Tourism has become the largest industry: hotels, restaurants, gift shops. The cost of housing is high because the preservation restrictions limit how much development can occur. A young family faces difficult choices: stay in Kyoto and accept a smaller income and higher costs, or leave and become like everyone else. Some stay. They become weavers, or they operate family businesses, or they teach. They do this because they believe that Kyoto is worth the cost. They are aware that they are making a choice that young people in Tokyo, in Shanghai, in Seoul do not have to make. A city that chooses to stay old is always making that choice. The choice is not made once at a single moment in history. It is made every time a developer is turned away. Every time a young person chooses to stay and learn a dying craft. Every time a machiya owner chooses repair over demolition. Every time a master weaver teaches an apprentice despite knowing the work will never be profitable. These small choices accumulate. They create a place that is different. Not better or worse, but different. Kyoto in winter is a city where you can still walk streets that were walked centuries ago, where the sound of a loom can still be heard, where a priest still rings a bell in a temple at dawn. where families still live in houses their ancestors built. The continuity is not natural. It is the result of thousands of individual choices made continuously against the pressure of the modern world. What Kyoto is preserving is not finally a collection of buildings. Buildings can be restored, rebuilt, replaced, and many of them have been more than once across 1500 years. What is actually being kept alive here is harder to see and harder to transfer. It lives in the hands of the lacquerwork artisan who has spent 30 years understanding how urushi behaves in cold air. It lives in the eye of the textile designer who can read a historic pattern and know which thread would have been used and why. It lives in the timing of the tea practitioner who knows when silence in a ceremony has become too long. This is knowledge that does not survive in archives. It can only be transmitted through proximity, one person teaching another slowly over years. Kyoto has built an infrastructure for this transmission: the apprenticeship systems, the family workshops, the seasonal festivals that keep old forms in active use. The buildings are the scaffolding. What they are holding up is something that must keep moving to stay alive. In Kyoto on a January night, when snow has begun to fall, the city becomes even quieter than usual. The snow absorbs sound. The wooden buildings seem to hold warmth inside them. In the Gion district, the narrow streets between the machiya are nearly empty. A few lanterns glow. The snow gathers on the tile roofs. The neon signs from the modern buildings at the city's edges are not visible from here. For a moment, for many moments, it is possible to imagine that time has not moved forward. The illusion is fragile. It depends on the choice of countless people to maintain it. But the illusion is real. The lanterns are lit. Snow falls silently on the stone lanterns and the wooden eaves of houses that have stood for 300 years. Sleep well.